Next up, to introduce the Building Variable panel, please welcome back from the University of Texas at Dallas, Steve Gingrich.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great morning, great afternoon so far. Good to be here with you again. One of the elements that we talk about a lot at UT Dallas is the future workforce. It's an awareness of the demand for talent that has driven, for example, our computer science program to be the third largest in the nation to feed this insatiable need for talent in our growing region. But in addition to STEM graduates, one of our initiatives is aimed at preparing the future workforce in venture and risk capital. So this is for you. It's named the Bridge Venture Fellowship. It was launched this past spring in partnership with Blackstone Group and Capital Factory. The focus is providing early education and exposure to the language and life of a VC professional. Taught by venture capitalists for venture capitalists, is specifically directed at underrepresented communities, and it's to help change the lack of diverse prepared students in the pipeline for hire for all of you. So we hope you take advantage of stopping by the table, all the tables of the exhibitors here today, and picking up one of these flyers to tell you more about the Bridge Venture Fellowship and how you can become part of the faculty of that or a supporter of one of the students that goes through the fellowship. Again, the North Texas region is a large and growing place for workforce. And it's a home to over 20 Fortune 500 corporate headquarters, making it one of the largest corporate headquarters concentrations in the U.S. Proximity to a growing list of potential corporate customers makes the DFW region a unique place to launch and scale a tech startup. This next panel will highlight innovation at Veryable, an on-demand marketplace for manufacturing, logistics, and warehousing labor. Please welcome to the stage Mike Kinder, CEO and co-founder of Veryable, Brian Talkman, general partner, Trust Ventures, and the moderator, Greg Head, founder of Gregslist.com. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. We have a great discussion queued up for you with a founder of a pretty young but fast-growing tech company here in Dallas, and a fast-growing investor fund based in Austin that's also pretty new. So we have the opportunity to go back and forth and hear both of their perspectives. Why don't we start with you, Mike, CEO and co-founder of Veryable. I love that name, V-E-R-Y-able, veryableops.com. But we'll start with you. Why don't you let us know where Veryable is now, how big is it, and then we'll go back and tell the story. And likewise, Brian, I'll ask you where your fund is now, and we'll go back and tell the story of how that grew up and then how you guys came together to work together.
Sure. Yeah, we're a Dallas-based company. We started in Dallas. We incorporated in 2016. We're based in the West End. We've grown to about 300,000 active operators on our platform, about 1 million downloads, 1 million users, 5,000 business side users, and 260 employees.
And how many of those 260 employees are in Dallas?
About 80 of them.
80 of them. So you actually have regional offices that serve your regional customers and the labor pools that you're connecting there.
Yep.
And briefly, what is Veryable for people that aren't expert in on-demand labor for manufacturing and logistics?
Yeah, and we can touch on that in a bit, a little bit more detail, but it's really about industrial innovation and our theory about labor being the primary constraint in industrial innovation. So I can tell that
we'll come back to that and how you started the company. Brian, you're an investor in Veryable here and on the board as well. And you've got a fast-growing fund that started not too long ago, and you're on your third fund already and investing quickly in big thinking entrepreneurs. Tell us about Trust Ventures.
Yeah, so a little bit smaller than Mike. We have 6 employees. So we have 27 investments. About 20% of those are in Texas, not by design, just because we found great companies in our backyard. We're based in Austin. Our team is distributed LA, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Austin, et cetera. We have roughly 500 million of assets under management, and we are deploying out of our third fund, which is about $250 million today. And Yeah, well, we just launched our third fund a few months ago. Well, the close was a few months ago, and now we're getting ready to deploy.
So, and you do early stage investment. You're not putting big piles of cash. You try to be the first check inside very ambitious founders and companies.
We do. So using Mike and Veryable is a great example of how we've progressed as a fund. We're high conviction investors. Our funds typically have 10 to 13 companies in each one. We go deep with founders. We look for someone who is really trying to shift a paradigm. And we want to own as much of that company as we can and be with them for as long as we can. With Mike, we wrote a pretty sizable check into that company, but then we wanted more. And we didn't have that capacity. And so we've grown our funds accordingly. But yeah, typically we want to be very early, want to have a very sizable position in that company, which requires us to lead. 90% of the deals we invest in now, we are the lead investor, deliver a term sheet, but also very careful with our time in terms of my goal is not to be on 17 boards. So we got to kind of manage that accordingly.
Great. All right, back to you here. Let's tell us about Veryable and your background and how the company got started, and we'll go through the journey of where it is today. It's already accelerating and raising big funding as well, but tell us more about Veryable and what's going on there.
Sure. Yeah, I'll probably do it in reverse chronological
There we go.
order there.
Yeah.
I'll talk about what we are and then how we got there. Those will be kind of the 2 points I'll make here. But the first point is what is this? And usually that's kind of a good question if you have monopoly potential. We think we do. It's about industrial innovation. So the thing about industrial innovation is, why isn't it going faster? What's stalling industrial innovation? There's no shortage of cool technology out there. You go to any trade show, tech show, you see a lot of cool stuff. Why aren't people doing it? The riddle, and I've spent my entire career in manufacturing and operations strategy, and the real riddle is, it's not about the what, it's about the how and the why, maybe in the other order. So why? Why would you do that? So, I mean, you know how this works when you're at home and you go into your garage and you find a tool. You don't go do that and then figure out what to do with the tool. You start off with a job to be done, then you go get the right set of tools. That's really the problem with industrial innovation. So when it comes to manufacturing, you have to actually set your operations strategy first. Then you can reverse engineer the tools you need. So number one priority for us is to go in and tell companies what your operation strategy should be. It's missing. Most companies don't have that. You think it sounds simple, but I think you probably see that all the time as companies that actually don't have a well-articulated strategy. So we do that in order to then reverse engineer, or help them reverse engineer, most of the time tell them how to reverse engineer innovation. And then we offer the starting point. That's the second thing, is what is your first problem? What, often feels arbitrary when you're doing something innovative and cool. Where do you start? That's what we built. We built the starting point. So labor is like your functional constraint in most of the time in manufacturing. It's not
the machines?
It's not machines. Nope, it's not machines. It's not material, maybe. So most of the time it's, you ask any manufacturer, what are your two big problems? They'll say labor, my supply chain. Go one level deeper, ask the suppliers, what are your problems? Labor, my supply chain. Keep going all the way down, and then you might get to the mine or the mill before you've got an asset constraint. So that's the thing, it's like turtles all the way down with labor. And that's what we built. So the starting point is build the labor marketplace, inject some liquidity to it. And where do you get that liquidity? You get it outside the labor force. 40% of the working age population is not in the labor force, but they got skills, they got time. So bring them in. And that's what we do. And then we chart the journey for them. We introduce the right SaaS products, we introduce the right hardware, software, all the way up the journey so they can excel. So that's what are we? I think we'll maybe have more time to get into later is how we've done it. But I think we're really proud at how we built this company. My co-founder and I, we started it when we were in our mid-30s. We'd already built pretty good reputations in what we do. We became experts, and my co-founder, he's a technologist, but he worked a lot in manufacturing. And we knew what we were doing. And we took everything we had, We threw it in, we burned the boats, and we did things right. And we've taken it the right way step by step. You know, we launched our proof of concept here in Dallas. We listened to the market, we listened to our customers, we saw what worked, we saw if it had the desired effect that we were hoping for. Then we iterated, and we went, you know, big priority of ours were to find partners like Brian that believed in what we were doing. We've never once optimized for valuation. We've never once optimized for a size of capital raise. You know, like I said, we're dads, we're baseball coaches, we're den leaders. We're not in it for the pageant. We're in it to build a really good company, and I think we're on that path.
Well, usually you don't talk about being a baseball coach and changing the face of manufacturing in the United States and elsewhere, right? It's an ambitious opportunity to work with these large organizations and move what used to be fixed, the labor, employees, some of that into a smaller fixed amount, and then you employ your variable pooled workers, right, on demand as they need to. And that, can you tell the story of what kind of transformation is possible when they see that kind of innovation strategy and efficiency and productivity and
yeah, absolutely.
growth?
And there's great stories galore. I mean, I can tell you, just in Dallas alone, we single-handedly have helped probably 24 businesses stay in business over the last couple of years because they've been able to access a tool that allows them to be more competitive. So here would be a good example of a Dallas company. You got a third-party logistics company that we go in and say, you should be 4 times as big. And I say, no, we can't. We don't have enough drivers. So you have plenty of drivers. Your drivers just aren't driving. They're not driving because they don't have material queued up. So what you got to do is you got to build up a ton of on-demand labor. Think of it like cloud computing, right? You're accessing this on demand. So when the order comes in from Microsoft that says, build a bunch of displays for all of the Costco's in Dallas and we'll give you $1 million. Say, well, I can't do that because I'll be done with that project in 2 weeks. I can't hire people, can't fire them. Say, no, tap into the cloud and do that. So they do that a couple times, they grow their revenue, and then they realize they've got this asset now, this asset they can weaponize. So they start taking orders like crazy, like honey badgers, you know? And that's what happened. So they grew 3x. They went from a $10 million company to a $30 million company in like nine months.
Yeah. And you know, well, some of my favorite stories about Veryable are actually the people transformations as well. So Veryable allows these operators to become entrepreneurs. And when they show up on time and they work hard, they get scored. They get paid, but they also put up on the scoreboard like, hey, I will be on time. I'm punctual, I'm reliable, I work hard. And when they start off, the average person probably starts about $15 an hour, $18 an hour. But as soon as they start showing up, the person who's hiring them, you know, every week saying, you know what, I like this guy. John shows up, he works hard. Let's teach him how to use SAP. Let's teach him how to drive a forklift. Now they're like, you know what, I could demand $22 an hour. I can demand $25 an hour. And you see, I mean, the climbing, you know, the rungs of the ladder start getting easier and easier for them to climb. I think they build confidence, and you know, we're seeing people to just make more and more, you know, dollars that go directly into their pocket. And the other side of the market's really happy because they're like, man, there's more skilled labor on this platform. It's this really virtuous cycle. And it just, there's so many good stories that, you know, of very specific people that Mike's seen them grow on the platform and become very successful. And they get to do it on you know, their terms.
Yeah, and in the labor shortage and manufacturing, fulfillment, distribution, I'm sure not everybody wants to work the 40-hour week or whatever they get to work. They could be more flexible, presumably, on your platform on the work side, the labor side?
I think it's actually more serious. You're right, but I think it's more serious than that. It's that they can't. You know? So, you know, if you're a single parent, you just can't allocate 7 to 3, 7 to 4 every day. Now, you might have that some weeks or some days, but not every day. That's the part of a job that is really hard for a lot of people to maintain, is holding that period of time open all the time. But here's the thing, businesses don't need that. Like if you're running your business right, where you're responding quickly to orders, why is 7 to 3 the magic time? Is that how orders are coming in? I doubt it. So that's, to your point earlier, we're actually telling these companies, you have to be more customer-centric. The ways to win in manufacturing right now are customer centricity and speed, right? So if you're taking orders and you're not getting those orders out in a very short period of time because you have these constraints, and my constraints are, I've got 20 people and 5 machines, and these things only run from 7 to 3 every day. Really? Is that how your orders are coming in? I doubt it. If Amazon did that, I'd never use them, you know? Like, that's it. So that's the point. And so it's a lot more than just resourcing. It's a whole new strategy.
So you get in the middle of that, including consulting with the clients to understand the variable philosophy, which is a new way of doing business, I guess. So it's new, you know, it's not the way it used to be done. And you provide this marketplace and the labor pools in there. Is your revenue, which is growing fast, is it mostly transactional revenue based on the hours worked and the shifts worked, or it's not a, you know, it's not a SaaS platform, it's a transaction platform, and your growth, you know, the more labor, the more revenue?
It's evolved. Most of it is transactional still. I mean,
Yeah.
we started off, everything was transactional, like you kind of pay by the bit. But our whole strategy all along has been, this is the springboard for SaaS. And so we've got multiple revenue streams going now, which many of them are SaaS, but we have complementary things like a finance, a banking platform, essentially, which all of our operators use. It's called Veryable Vault. We make money off the Vault aspect. We've got affiliate marketplaces where partners of ours use our platform to market their solutions to
Right.
our million eyeballs that we've got every day. So yeah, most of it is transactional, but that's shifting as we go pretty
Yeah,
quick.
one other thing I would add to that, Mike is an absolute, and the team are experts in manufacturing, logistics, labor. They were very, very deep in that, and then they slowly expanded into these other aspects of the business, and they saw that they became so critical, and that's what we loved. Mike had a grand vision really early on, but he said, look, we are very focused on how we deliver our product today, and then we expand our scope over time. And the guy's delivered. He has delivered exactly on that vision over the course of many years that we've been invested now, and then even some ancillary things we didn't see. I didn't see Vault early on, but over the last 18 months, we've seen the opportunity for Vault be, you know, this tremendous platform for both just templater general, but just the 1099 community as a whole. So this has, you know, really spawned numerous other opportunities that allow Veryable to keep growing at, you know, really rapid pace.
Mike, maybe you could take us quickly through your journey of funding. When you and your co-founder Noah started the company, it was a few rounds of funding before you met Brian, and now there's a big funding last year, but how did it go in the early days? I'm sure it's still crazy for you now, but it was a little crazier then when you were doing some angel and initial seed rounds and so forth, and then how did you get connected with Brian for their seed round?
Yeah, it's something I'm really proud of. Now, Brian will probably accuse me of being too tight, but I personally, I don't like fundraising. I see it as a necessary aspect of the business, and I do it to the extent that I kind of do it right, but I don't enjoy it. And I like building good companies. And so what we did early on is a lot of it was our money and friends and family money, and we did exactly what we wanted to do, and that was prove that our idea was going to work. And then right after that, we were able to find a set of very, very good angels that kind of helped us get to the next level, and that would have been 2017 or so, which was probably our biggest year of trial and error, trying to get that right. I mean, there's a lot about our go-to-market approach that was brand new, and we had to figure out how to scale that beyond me into maybe 10 other people. And then after that, it's when we started the venture funding, and Chicago Ventures was our first venture money, and they led our round in 2018, early 2018. Chicago Ventures is a great partner. But at each one, and then Brian came in the next round. And so, but each round, what we were trying to do is get enough capital to do what we wanted to do over the next phase. And that turned out to be the right approach. We never did it the other way around. It was never, and we ran into trouble with this, was I don't need a $10 million check back in 2018. I need like a $3 million check. I'm not going to take your $10 million check because I don't know what to do with the other $7 million. I only know what to do with the 3. Not that we didn't have any big ideas. We had plenty of ideas, but we knew that wasn't what we were going to do over the next 12 months. So very important to kind of pace yourself. We had a term from the very beginning. It was called tight core product. So we were going to build a very tight core product and make sure that we isolated the variables, and we knew that what we had was going to work. And so we didn't want to pollute that early on. We wanted to build on top of it and not, constantly have to try to identify the root cause, what wasn't working, take on too much. So that was it. And so then when Brian came on board, that was about the point where we had really found fit. And
you were in revenue at that point?
Oh, yeah. And we were growing pretty fast. We had a presence in Texas. We had a presence in Atlanta. We're in 27 cities now, but we were in, I think, 4 or 5 at the time. And that was the time where we thought, we've got it repeatable. We can do this experiment. Nothing is going to come down the pike that we, haven't already seen yet. And after that point, that was history.
Brian, how did you meet Mike? And I'm sure he was talking to investors and you were talking to other deals, but how did you guys get connected?
Yeah, I had to chase Mike down. He played hard to get for quite a bit. I'd previously worked with one of his guys, Pete, who runs strategy for Veryable, was a colleague of mine previously, and I saw his post on LinkedIn about Veryable. And he just said, hey, we're doing some cool things. And so I was just curious. I looked it up. I was like, you're doing some really cool things. I'd love to chat more. And it took 4 or 5 emails and phone calls before Mike would give me a ring back. And as soon as he did, I was like, I'm coming to Dallas tomorrow. And he's like, for what? I was like, to see you. And we spent half a day together, and Mike was the kind of principled entrepreneur that had the deep expertise in something, and it was something that I knew enough about that I didn't have to do a lot of kind of education. Sometimes in my job, you see like a biotech deal, and you're like, oh, man, I know nothing about it. It sounds interesting, but I don't know how to validate this, and you spend a lot of time. Luckily, I was knowledgeable enough about manufacturing logistics and the labor market to say, this is an enormous market, and if Mike can deliver even on a fraction of what he plans on doing, this will be just a roaring success. And so, yeah, pursued hard, and Mike finally said, all right, we can go on a date. And, we've been biggest fans ever since. I was just kind of doing the math and realized we have nearly 10x'd our investment in Veryable since our first check.
Right, and you've put in more money. So can you tell us?
From the first check, we've written
check.
10x more into it since the first check.
And you've written more checks into it. So can you talk about what the check size was, or what was those first checks here? Because this isn't big. You have a lot of money in your fund these days, but you were writing small checks.
Oh yeah.
Was that fund one?
It was our first fund, and it was a pretty good sized check for us, especially then. And because I always kind of calculate a follow-on percentage. So we wrote $1.5 million in there. I was like, well, we're going to write $3 million into it. We ended up writing over $15 million into the company so far. And honestly, if Mike called me tomorrow and said, hey, we need more capital, I've got a new opportunity, I'd love to have that conversation. But yeah, I mean, we're looking for these founders that are addressing really big markets where they have a plan that can penetrate something to generate a huge paradigm shift. And when you see that in a $100 billion market plus, which is manufacturing, logistics, labor, we're all ears. And so, and he had the expertise to do it. Him and Noah, they said, look, we understand this industry really well, and we have the capability to build what we need to.
And did you have that big vision from the beginning? Were you more practical about it in the beginning, or do you say, someday we're going to transform 10% of the manufacturing GDP of this country in a big way, which is very big numbers? Did you have a big vision like that when you started, obviously, and then were practical about how you
I'm telling you, at the phase in our life where Noah and I were when we started this company, we wouldn't have done it if the vision wasn't big.
Right.
And it had to be. I think the challenge, if any, I know we got plenty of entrepreneurs out here, but the challenge is often holding tight to that big vision but then going backwards and starting in the right sequence, right? You don't betray the big vision, but you don't get there overnight. You got to get there piece by piece, brick by brick. So I'll give you an example of what I was seeing. This was back like 2015, 2016. Got all these technologies coming out of often Silicon Valley, and they're things like machine analytics. So it's like, hey, put these machine analytics on your machine, and it'll tell you how efficient you are on your machine. It's like I used to run plants. If you told me my machine was 48.9% utilized, I'd say, I knew that. I knew it was 50%. It doesn't do me any good to know that it's 48.9%. That technology doesn't have a value prop. It doesn't. You're never going to get anyone to buy that. The problem is not the machine. It's the fact that you don't have any people to run it or any material to put in it. So once you solve those problems, and then you start running that machine at the level you need to run it, then that technology makes sense. So what I was seeing was like a mismatch of time and use case and value prop. So we needed to build the thing that was going to make those things relevant. So you got to stay true to that vision, but you got to build up to that point. You don't get there in 2016, you don't get there in 2017. You barely get there in 2022. We're almost there.
And you just raised a Series A round, I guess, just over 30 million?
Yeah, 32, and that was last summer. Yeah.
Great. And I noticed you have about 100 open jobs on your website, something like that. You're hiring and growing fast. And Brian, you participated in that and will continue. By the way, this is how it always goes. It's somebody with a big vision gets funding and it works, and investors like to keep going. No, this is a rare thing, and it's congratulations on your progress and your investment, and your company's based in downtown Dallas.
That's right.
Was there something about Dallas that said, I got to do it here in Dallas? Or you just said, I'll do it here in Texas, and Dallas is just as good as any place? What advantages or disadvantages do you see of being based here in Dallas?
Yeah, no, the honest answer is Dallas is my home. I grew up here. I grew up in Richardson, and I couldn't see myself starting a company anywhere else. So that's pretty much the honest answer. But the more technical answer is I've done site selection a lot in my career for manufacturing, for other things. And whenever you are doing a site selection project, you come up with like a multivariate analysis on what it is. And Dallas isn't an obvious choice, right, for a lot of companies. But what we looked at was, are there certain conditions that could be satisfied to make Dallas the optimal place? So you look at things that are uncontrollable. What is uncontrollable? Maybe something like the industry sectors. So Dallas is very diverse verticals. What I didn't want is to be siloed into a certain vertical, automotive only, aerospace only. I needed a diverse set of verticals. Talent, Dallas got a ton of talent. Population density, got a ton of that. Weather isn't trivial. We have a lot of moving pieces. So I didn't want the experiment to be sullied by like a snow month or something like that. I wouldn't know what to do with that.
We do snow weeks here, but not months. So.
And so we went in eyes wide open. I mean, we knew the limitations of Dallas, and the limitations of Dallas are early stage funding and low expectations, as hard as that is to hear, I think. So our strategy was, look, can we acquire the capital that we need without going through Dallas channels? And can we set an example? And that's what we set out to do.
Thank you for doing that. And is there anything in Texas, about Texas or North Dallas or Austin in your thesis, or it's anywhere there are great companies and you just happen to see them faster in Texas?
Yeah, why Trust Ventures is in Texas is same answer as Mike. It was where my home was. Right. But the second thing Mike said as well is that there's not a lot of capital here. It's an unfair advantage. There's a lot of smart people doing interesting things here. I think a lot of companies don't really come to fruition because there isn't enough capital here. So I love, in some essence, that we get to be one of a few capital providers. I think we need more competition. We need more venture here. It's been great to see some move over the last couple of years, but ultimately, we like Texas. Like 20% of our companies are here, and that was not by design. If you do the math, we should have most of ours in San Francisco, a few in New York, a few in LA, and like one in Texas. But yeah, we see a lot happening in Texas, and it's growing. I started my company before Trust Ventures in Austin, and when I started, it was really hard to get software engineers. The talent was really tough. When we started Trust Ventures, I tried recruiting my companies to Texas, some from San Francisco and other places. They're like, can I really get the talent? I haven't heard that answer in 2+ years, and I don't think I'll ever hear that again. I think that we've seen so much growth in Texas, Austin in particular, Dallas significantly as well, that you can do anything. You can find the absolute best people. You can start the biggest company in the world, I think, in Texas now. Awesome. I don't think you could say that 5 years ago.
Right. Awesome. Mike, I'll give you the last word here. How big can Veryable get?
A lot bigger. A lot bigger. I mean, we're still in the early innings. We're, like I said, in 20.
$1 billion company, a $10 billion company. Look, he's nodding his head over here.
Too low.
But yeah, right.
I mean, we're pretty much at the first one.
Yeah.
We're very close to it. But, I mean, just do the math. Manufacturing is a $2.5 trillion GDP sector in the U.S. alone. Labor represents almost $1 trillion of that. So we're in about half the U.S. right now. Many of those we've just launched in the last year and a half. We've got SaaS products that are awesome, that are probably going to cannibalize things like MES, WMS, going to do lean deployment. Our vision was to take over this space and be the tip of the spear for manufacturing technology, and I think we're in a position to capitalize on that. So we'll be pretty big.
Well, thank you for thinking big and doing it every day right here in Dallas. And thanks for investing. Thank you both for sharing your stories today with us here at Venture Dallas.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.